I'm here to talk about something a little different, even though it's still in the same realm of like the challenge. I'm going to talk about Real World LA Homecoming. I think this was episode 6. The season's winding down at this point, but I'm here with Q to talk about this latest dramatic episode. This is one dramatic ass cast, Q.
The whole season's been dramatic.
It has been. So what were your thoughts on this episode? Because we had a little bit of controversy towards the end of the episode, to say the least.
Do we want to just jump right in?
I mean, I guess we could start with the season as a whole, shouldn't we? Since this is the first one we're talking about. Like, the big topic was always going to be David and the whole allegations of him being called a rapist and all that shit that happened with Tammy way back in the day. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah. I mean, I think I see both sides. I see Tammy's points and how she felt humiliated and, sharing her struggles of, body dysmorphia, which I think, like, her feelings about what she went through, definitely valid, right? We can't take her experiences away from her. But I don't think that I also very much understand David's perspective. And I hate to say this because I feel like I sound like, I'm sympathizing with like a man, that's always gross and shit. But like, I really do understand David's point of view, which is that everyone was genuinely laughing. And I do get that, like, Tammy, her argument was that, oh, I'm laughing as a stress response, which is totally valid. And again, like, she is entitled to her experiences. I think they're both just entitled to their experiences and what they saw happening in the moment. From David's perspective, it was very much that it was all fun and games. They were laughing, they were joking, it kept getting escalated. You had John in the corner acting like a WWE referee, and it just kept escalating, but it all seemed fun and games. And the next thing you know, he's being called a rapist. But then, trigger warning, might want to add that in there. But then, from Tammy's perspective, she's incredibly uncomfortable. She doesn't know how to deal with this discomfort, and so she's laughing excessively. So I think they're both valid, and I just think that it was totally blown out of proportion by the house. I feel like Tammy and David are valid in how they reacted, but I think everyone very much blew that out of proportion, being Irene, Beth. They would use that as an excuse to get rid of David because they just didn't like him and they were threatened by him. So I don't want to take up all the time, but
yeah, I feel like David was never really upset with Tammy, though. I feel like he was always upset with Beth and Irene because of the whole rapist comment.
Yes. And I feel like Tammy wasn't so much upset with David so much as she was just upset with the fact that he didn't understand why she was upset.
Yeah.
Which is fair. And he should have, 30 years ago, I could see why he wouldn't have the maturity to understand that. But now, watching the episode back, he was still laughing. Like, well, everybody was fucking laughing. And it's like, dude, you're 60. Come on now.
Right? Get it together, dude.
Well, maybe that's not how math works. What is he, 50? You're 50, David. Stop. Like, come on. Now you've got a daughter. You should understand all this shit, body dysmorphia, what's going through a woman's mind. Also, like, I would think he would be a little bit more sympathetic now looking at it, seeing as he does have a daughter.
Exactly.
Could you imagine if she's in a fucking house on, Netflix's little ghetto version of Real World and somebody pulls her covers off? Then the person that did that really would be called a rapist and there would be hella charges pressed.
Yeah.
But I digress. But I was just going to say that, because I want to stay on this a little bit more. But, like, I do think that, like, for me, the biggest thing was that they allowed other people to instigate the situation, namely Beth and Irene.
Beth is an instigator in general.
Yes.
I wish I knew her astrology chart because I'm almost convinced she's a Libra moon because she's always in drama and she likes it.
Oh, yeah.
Were there any other hot topics earlier in the season?
Nick.
I guess David and his drinking.
We should have done a proper one. Yeah, David and his drinking. Ciao. We can't address every goddamn thing. That, and then, like, that was a storyline that really only lasted for an episode.
True.
Doesn't look like they're interested in bringing that back.
True.
And, like, also, I'm not saying David does or doesn't have addiction issues. I'm not equipped to make that call. But I do think that the man has been through a lot, okay? He's been called a rapist for 30 years, okay? He literally had a motorcycle accident. They left him for dead.
True.
Wasn't he put in a coma?
Mm-hmm.
He's put in a fucking coma. Like, he's been through a lot. So if he wants to have a little drinky drink to relax his nerves, I'm gonna mind my business. And I think they need to do the same. And John's out here being messy because it's like, you know what? If somebody's out here genuinely battling addiction and substance abuse and you're supposed to be an alleged mentor and you know, guidance counselor or whatever, maybe confronting them on camera is not the, you know, holy thing to do.
Yeah, that's something I've always hated about reality shows. Like sometimes they always save the drama for the cameras. So it doesn't seem genuine. It doesn't seem reality. It
doesn't seem genuine. And like, I'm not saying that John wasn't being genuine, but you can pray for somebody in your heart. You know, you don't have to sit there. It just didn't need to be a moment that was called out on camera.
I agree. So let's first, before we get to this last episode, talk about Irene for a little while.
Oh, this bitch.
She's been married how many times?
About 17, 18 now.
She's a straight up soap opera character for real.
The best part about Irene is that Irene exposes herself. We were sitting here, we were celebrating. We weren't celebrating her actually, but you know, we were talking about Beth and you know, her getting married and there was something like where the conversation wasn't even about Irene, and Irene was like, you know, I'm on my 19th husband. Right. And you know, being on the real world, something that you guys didn't know about me is that, you know, I had already been married. And I realized that I didn't want to have a child with this person, so I got an abortion. I did.
She kept adding all of this shit into her.
Then I watched someone get clubbed by the police, and you know.
And I didn't say anything. But yeah, I mean, I guess that's what the season's for, though. It's to like.
No, you gotta let the producers pull that shit out of you, okay?
Irene wants the storyline this season.
Irene said that her time was cut short voluntarily because she literally left.
Yeah, to marry her second husband.
Yes, Irene she's a mess. She makes me. I'm gonna reference a meme / GIF of your least favorite person in the world, Chrissy Teigen. Oh, you know the GIF where she's literally just like, ooh, like cringing. That is how I feel every time I watch Irene on camera. I'm just like, we didn't need this, Irene. You could have kept your 19 husbands to yourself, honey.
If you feel like Chrissy Teigen every time she does that, you feel really bad.
I feel like one of Chrissy Teigen's victims when I watch Irene. Okay.
Well, I guess that brings us to tonight's episode.
Oh, this bitch.
I mean, it started well. Seemed like we were going to get out of drama for once this season until the
end. John tried to warn us. John was like, I told y'all we should have gone on the bed, okay? He had a good night. He sang his little country tune, okay? It was time to go to bed. And they want to sit up here. You know what? What do you think are the chances? I am convinced that the producers like told them which color box to pull.
Probably.
Because like, how perfect is it that John, the Alabama, you know, Southern Baptist, whatever, who has black colored people in his house at home in Southern Alabama, how perfect is it that he gets the question about George Floyd?
Yeah. I mean, yeah, you're probably right. Unless they like, we just saw a part of that and they pulled other questions before that, which is possible.
I guess.
So how did the drama start? I don't even remember.
The drama started when they sat their ass down and played that game. That's how the drama started. Literally, he pulled a question and the question said, Irene, and that's how you knew that this night was going to go in the shitter. Because anytime Irene says something, we're about to get way more information than we wanted or we needed. But they asked how Irene felt. Is she still a cop? Or
they make it seem like she is, but I doubt it.
Because she was very much speaking in the present tense of like, you haven't been in my shoes to be spit in the face for, you know, your job. And it's like, well, you know, you choose to have that job, okay? anyways. Yeah, it's not anyways, child. I ain't gonna get that.
Yeah, I mean, she told us too much information too about how she had seen things in the police force. And you were saying something before the podcast about how the police, what do you call it? Like they're so loyal to each other.
Oh, like their blue code, the code of blue or some shit.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what pisses me off about this. Like, I'm on both sides of the fence because like I get this whole idea of like not all cops are bad. I genuinely don't think that that's the case. I don't think all cops are bad. I think that there are some people who genuinely want to do their job, do it well, and go. But there is that small minority of people who unfortunately ruin it for everyone. And I think what happens is because of this blue code, this like brotherhood among cops where it's like the good cops, that do want to just do their jobs and go home, they end up protecting these really awful cops. And so that's where this mentality of all cops are bad comes into play. So it's like Irene may have been one of those people that just wanted to do her job and pay her bills and go marry her 17th husband, but she's out here letting people get away with shit and doesn't want to speak up and doesn't want to face those repercussions.
Exactly. So, and that is a huge problem with all the police.
It is.
I agree.
But I do not subscribe to the mentality that like all cops are bad. I don't think that that's true, but I do think that this code that they have in place of protecting one another, disgusting. And it needs to be a way for them to hold like police.
I agree. I mean, it doesn't help that, the actual courts don't even hold them accountable.
Right.
The vast majority of the time.
Right. And like just the fact that it is like such a fraternity, I think is just like perpetuates this culture. So. But.
So then Glenn opened his mouth and about how he doesn't see color.
Well, hold up now. Let's backtrack because Tammy. Oh no, let's go back to Irene, okay? Because we ain't gonna skate past her. Because Irene had to throw in that she marched with her son for BLM, and that's when Tammy woke up, and that's when John said, "Well, this night's fucked." And that's when which one's Beth A? Is it Beth A the messy one?
I think so. I get that mixed up.
Beth A, I didn't hear that bitch say anything.
For once, maybe she's not a leader.
She said, nope, I am not getting involved in this one. She said, Glenn, you take the floor. But yes, Irene had to throw in the fact that she and her son marched for BLM. And then Tammy was like, oh, well, when you say BLM, that means that you are specifically acknowledging how Black people are treated. And then Irene was like, well, I acknowledge that people are mistreated. And it's like, well, bitch, it's not called All Lives Matter. It's called Black Lives Matter. So like, she literally tried to All Lives Matter her Black Lives Matter march, which just, what?
Didn't even make sense.
Irene overshares and then has to trademark pussy pop her way out of everything.
Actually, before we get to Glenn, David said something that I agree with the most.
Yes.
About how it's not just black and white and how these corporations are, I mean, I don't want to say too much or we're going to get fucking banned by our corporation talking about this.
Oh, yes.
But I do feel like everything is so tribalism these days and we're all trying everything. We all have to be apart all the time.
Identity politics.
That is 100% what it is.
If you subscribe to identity politics, disgusting.
It is.
Continue.
But it isn't just Democrats versus Republicans. It's fucking black versus white, black versus Asian, white versus Latino, fucking vax versus anti-vax. It's all everything. Literally everything gets divided into identity politics. You're right.
No, that's when I say identity politics, I 100% mean like identity in its truest sense. And I just think it's so funny that like we are in this movement of not identifying as anything, yet we constantly label ourselves. Well, I refuse to fall into that. But anyways, yes, David was basically, trying to be reasonable and say that he understands at least where his fellow castmates are coming from. And I think that is often something that gets lost when you try to have these conversations about race and such, is that like, yes, especially like as Black people, when we're given a space and a time to speak about something, that's great. And like, we should do that. But also like, you should listen too, because when you listen, that helps you understand everyone's point of view. Like everyone should just come from a place of like listening and understanding and having compassion, even if you don't agree.
Yeah, I agree. That's why I don't like cancel culture. I talked about this on this channel already, but I don't like most of cancel culture because it just basically people can't agree on. Like if they disagree with you, you want to just not talk to them or you want to cancel them. It gets ridiculous very quickly.
Yeah. Which, you know, they were the original cancel culture people because they fucking kicked David out.
True.
And tried to label this man as a racist. Like that was like or a rapist. Like that was trigger warning. Like that is to me, like 30 years ago, that was cancel culture. We're putting labels on this person. So like fuck everybody on this cast. Like they are the originators of cancel culture, truly.
Kind of, but I also feel like at least on these old seasons of Real World, they did have these conversations. In that case, though, they didn't want to talk to David, which was the wrong decision.
Yeah.
If they would have had that conversation, maybe things would have been different.
Yeah.
But I do feel like on the Real World back in the day, at least they would have conversations. Whereas these days, I feel like people don't even want to have the conversation.
Unless you're gonna literally say everything that they want to hear.
Exactly.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I think that you and I feel differently about Tammy's approach in this conversation.
Kinda.
Which this is kind of foreshadowed in the next episode, which pisses me off a little bit because I feel like the fact that David tried to, you know, take the middle ground and say, oh, I see both sides and, you know, everything's not black and white, but there is black and white. Let's be clear.
There is.
I am annoyed now that this is going to further the rift between him and Tammy because David is entitled to feel how he wants to feel, as is Tammy. Mm-hmm. It's the same thing, right? Like, they're both entitled to their feelings, and they just need to stop trying to always bring, well, Tammy, I feel like, in this instance, doesn't need to try and make David understand or try and convert him to her way of thinking. If David wants to feel like this is just identity politics and that you're all being ridiculous, I think he's entitled to feel that.
I agree.
And so, like, and then just kind of going on to Tammy and how she approached this conversation, Irene started it because she had to go on and mention BLM, and Tammy was like, well, I'm going to slide on in there. And then Tammy was kind of giving us like the very much 2021 social justice warrior rundown.
Yeah, but was Glenn not being ridiculous?
Glenn was being ridiculous, but Tammy was doing other things too. Like she was like, John, how do you as a conservative feel about this? And it's like, why are you doing this?
I mean, yeah, I guess, but we have to talk about Glenn though, because he's talking about how he doesn't see color and he doesn't think it's wrong.
Child, well, now Glenn's failures are his own.
They are.
Because wasn't nobody talking to Glenn.
True. And
Glenn was like, well, am I wrong that I don't see color? And everybody was like, yeah, actually, Glenn, you fucking are. You are wrong. Yeah, actually. And so,
but then it got worse. Then he mentions his friend and how someone
can white people, if you were there, listen to me closely. Whenever you are in a conversation with any minority group, please do not bring up your one friend and their god-awful experience that, let's be honest, was probably a fairly rare occasion. Do not bring up that awful event and paint that as the moment when you finally understood what was happening to oppressed groups. Thank you.
Yes. But then he also said the word. He gave the full quote. He said the N-word.
With a hard ER.
Yes.
I think it would be one thing if he said, you can beat me or not. I think it'd be one thing if he's like, oh yeah, they called him a nigga. But like he said ER. I saw him like roll his R and his tongue through that bleep. And that just makes it all the worse.
Wait, that of course was gonna set Tammy up again though.
Child. Now Tammy was valid in how she felt about it. I mean, she's always valid in how she feels. She was valid in how she reacted to that. Because it was like, Glenn, now you just sat up here and said you didn't see color, and now you're saying the N-word. Like this just isn't. And then we gonna get into Irene.
Yes, then Irene comes on.
Irene, why?
And she's trying to defend Tammy, I guess, by saying that Glenn is wrong.
You don't know how it feels to be a and Tammy's just like, you know what? Go on, wrap this up. Wrap it up. Cut.
No idea what it is to be a okay?
Well, I can't.
Do not ever say that.
You don't say it either. Because you Latina. With my Latina brothers and sisters, it's certain slang and shit that people say I would never say about y'all. And I feel like I should be afforded the same courtesy. So you could tell your story. All I'm saying is you don't need to use the word to tell it.
All right. So, I mean, Irene's Latina, I guess. You think she has a pass? She has a hall pass for the N-word?
Fuck no. Fuck no. No, that's not your culture. That's not your history. That was not a term used to oppress and abuse Latino people. Absolutely not. No, no. And this is where, you know, terms like people of color become problematic because, you know, bitches be out here thinking that, you know, something that applies to one group applies to all. No, ma'am. You don't get a pass to say that. I'm gonna sit your ass down now, Irene, because we still ain't over you sitting here saying that you knew people was out here doing fuck shit and you wasn't calling them out. So you may want to sit this one out, baby girl.
Yeah, that was just more dumb on top of dumb between Irene and Glenn.
So dumb. What puts that? Like, Irene is just trying so hard to like have comeuppance this season. Like, she's like, guys, she needs to, like, you know, the Catholic Church, like, self-flagellating, like, she's literally just beating herself and no one cares. No one cares. We didn't need to know. We got to go back to the abortion thing though. But it's like, we didn't even need to know about your 7 marriages and your abortions, ma'am. Like,
What was the abortion thing? Oh, how all the women have gotten abortions in?
how literally these raggedy hoes, these trifling bitches, they literally, okay, you gonna just beat me out because you gotta leave that shit in. I'm so mad. They literally I mean, like, you know, yeah, Tammy in 2021 is like, oh, the face of like a strong woman, abortion, yes, you know, women's rights. But like when this shit was airing 30 years ago, let's not pretend like Tammy wasn't the cliche black girl that, you know, went out here and got knocked up and went and, you know, did the quick and dirty abortion. Like they literally just let this woman, like, left her out to dry. And like Beth, both of the Beths and Irene were out here having abortions.
You're not wrong.
And also, like, again, what annoys me is that they out themselves.
I know, right? Now, anyway.
Like Beth, she even like pulled Tammy aside as if it's not all on camera and was like, you know, Tammy, you don't know this, but the one time I had sex, I too had an abortion. And Tammy was like, I mean, damn, you could have said this 30 years ago, but thanks, Beth.
Yeah.
So fuck all of them. All of these bitches are trifling.
They are messy, but I guess they make for a good reunion season because of all the drama. Do you have any other thoughts on tonight's episode?
Yeah, I mean, just kind of like looking at what they foreshadow with Tammy and David and Tammy's husband, Reggie. Like, first of all, just dissecting like the little, you know, 20-second clip that they gave us. It looks like we already know Tammy and David just aren't going to get along. It looks like Tammy is upset because David, in her opinion, David didn't take that opportunity to speak up as a black man. And that really irritates me because it's like, well, you're doing exactly what you don't like what we're fighting for, which is like, don't try and like typecast him. I mean, yes, he's a black man, but that doesn't mean that he's lived his experiences. And like, if his experience is that he feels like this is just, you know, divide and conquer, that was him speaking up as a black man in David's shoes,
Yeah,
you know?
exactly.
So I don't understand like why I don't know what she wanted him to get up and say. And also David has been very, I feel like, transparent about the black male experience in America, especially as being, you know, coined a rapist and how they did him, trying to get him out of the house because, oh my God, he's such a threat.
Yeah.
The fucking guy is like 105 pounds soaking wet.
Mm-hmm.
Stop. Go ahead.
I was just going to ask, because I don't watch Basketball Wives, but I guess you have.
Yes.
Who's this boyfriend coming into the next episode?
Child, first of all, that's her husband.
Oh, husband, sorry.
Reggie is her husband. I don't know how long they've been married. I don't think that they were married or even together by the time she got off Basketball Wives, and if they were together, I had stopped watching long ago. But yeah, Reggie's her husband. He's 27 years younger. He's 27. I don't know if he's 27 years younger. But the point is that I also resent the fact that they allow him to enter the house, look for David, who is, you know, a little less than twice his age, Like, what are you gonna fight this fucking, again, 5'2", 105-pound man, like, who's like literally cracked his brain open and is probably battling substance abuse? Like, what are you doing? What are we doing? Like, what? I resent the fact that MTV is allowing them to play up the ratchet black stereotype. Like, what are we doing? What are we doing? We're gonna talk about Black Lives Matter and then do some ratchet black shit in the same vein and like make us look ratchet. Am I making sense?
Yeah, you're making sense. It does seem very dramatic in the next episode. I don't know what causes it, but I guess we'll find out.
And like, we know that David and Tammy are just never gonna see eye to eye.
Yeah,
And they should just make peace with that
yeah.
and just stop talking to each other. But MTV is like, they're really milking this season a lot. It's almost kind of annoying how much they're trying to like stir up drama, you know?
I guess. I mean, they tried that last season too, but I don't think that cast is just very dramatic. Well, it had its drama in the beginning, but
Yeah.
as a whole,
I think that this experience could truly be one of like healing and transformation if MTV and the producers didn't try it and like manufacture and manipulate it so much.
yeah, I mean, I guess. But don't you think that it could still be healing?
No,
Why?
absolutely not. They had this really nice, go listen to John and his honky tonk shit, and then they go and they play this.
But I don't think you could only heal by good experiences. I mean, sometimes you have to get the
right.
angst out.
I mean, every time that damn TV comes on, some shit about to happen. Every time they get in front of that TV,
Well, still a TV show.
somebody about to. Right. So I just feel like the reality TV-ness of this show prevents any of them from having real, true healing.
Yeah, I guess that's true.
Because there's always just going to be some shit.
Yeah.
So I think that they need to do a real, like, kumbaya, come to Jesus moment off camera. But there's not going to be any healing because it's always going to be, it's got to be that wow factor.
I don't know. I think Irene's going to be nice and healed. She got all of it out. She's gotten everything out.
Irene. Let's move on.
Well, any final thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I'm enjoying the season. It's good. It's good. I want to see Beth A and what's her name from New York? The one that gets wine drunk and be turning up.
Yeah.
What's her fucking name? Laura, Susan,
I don't remember.
Mary, Marty. Anyways, I like when they all get wine drunk and just go in the confessionals and stuff.
That's always fun.
Yeah, it's a good show. I'm excited to see how it ends, and hopefully they can have, at least a TV moment where there's some healing and then they all get in the cars and go.
That'll probably be the last episode, which is coming close because I think there's only 8 episodes. So,
Yeah.
All right. Well, that was fun. Thank you for talking about the real world LA. Is it LA or California?
It's California, but then they had to change it, and so they call it LA now. Bye.